From drone regulations to housing loans, we're unpacking a mountain of fresh regulations today. I'm Julian Cross, and with me is Dr. Elena Harper.
Always an adventure exploring the Federal Register, Julian. Never know what you'll find.
Okay, so the Department of Agriculture, they finalized a rule updating manufactured housing provisions. What caught my eye, the goal, giving borrowers more options in a competitive market.
Fascinating, isn't it? This final rule, issued January 3rd, 2025, comes from the Rural Housing Service, focuses on making things easier for people to get to affordable housing. It's not just about increasing options, though. They're aiming for an enhanced customer experience, which is intriguing.
Right, enhanced customer experience. You don't exactly hear that phrase in government circles often. What's that even look like for, someone applying for a home loan?
Well, we'll have to see how it plays out, right? But I think it signals a shift in how government agencies view their role, not just about processing applications, but about making the process, user-friendly, efficient. Maybe we'll see things like streamlined online applications, clearer communication, more personalized support. Who knows?
Next up, the Department of Commerce. They're looking to secure the supply chain for unmanned aircraft systems. Drones, as most of us know them. This advance notice of proposed rulemaking from the Bureau of Industry and Security, it came out January 3rd too, specifically targets technology from, foreign adversaries.
What's so fascinating here is the balance they're trying to strike. On one hand, you've got this booming drone industry, all this potential for innovation, economic growth. But then on the other hand, there are legitimate concerns about national security, right? The possibility of sensitive technology getting into the wrong hands.
Tough call. How do you encourage innovation without compromising security?
The million-dollar question, right? This proposed rulemaking, it could really have ripple effects throughout the whole industry. Companies relying on international collaborations, they might face new hurdles, and the development of certain drone technologies could be impacted. Be interesting to see how they navigate all of that.
Now we have a flurry of activity from the Department of Defense, the General Services Administration, and NASA. 4 final rules, 2 additional documents all hit the Federal Register, January 3rd again, and they're all dealing with government contracts.
Definitely a theme here. Streamlining and clarifying. One rule, for example, changes the subcontracting incentives for businesses in certain U.S. territories. Another updates the requirements for how you classify businesses based on size and socioeconomic status. They're also making changes to suspension and debarment procedures. That's essentially how they decide who can bid on government contracts.
So is this a sign of the times? Maybe adapting to, a changing business landscape, responding to issues we've seen?
It's probably a combination of factors. Government contracting is incredibly complex. These rules, they're all about making the process more efficient, more transparent, and fair for everyone involved.
Let's move on to education. The Department of Education has finalized regulations. They focus on distance education and student financial assistance programs. These final regulations are titled Program Integrity and Institutional Quality, Distance Education and Return of Title IV HEA Funds, published January 3rd, 2025.
This is a big one for the world of online learning. With all these online universities, courses, there's a growing need to make sure there's quality control and to prevent fraud. These regulations, they aim to protect students and taxpayers by setting clear standards for distance education programs and how they can use federal financial aid.
Makes you wonder, will this lead to more, scrutiny of online programs? Could it even, impact the availability of financial aid for certain courses?
Those are important questions, for sure. This is a big step, in the evolution of online education. It'll be interesting to see how institutions adapt and how these rules shape the future of learning.
Next, the Department of Energy. They finalized an interim final rule on technology investment agreements, finalized January 3rd, 2025. Updates, streamlines procedures for agreements that help the department collaborate with private companies on research and development.
Sounds like they're trying and make it easier for the government to partner with those companies, On those cutting-edge technologies, this could be a sign of, a renewed push for innovation in some key sectors, right? Like renewable energy efficiency, maybe even advanced manufacturing.
Cutting red tape, basically, to speed things up.
Exactly. Time is of the essence when it comes to, technological advancement. These updates, I think they suggest a greater sense of urgency in fostering these public-private partnerships.
Now let's talk air quality. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, has been busy. 2 proposed rules, both about air quality. One withdraws a previous approval for the redesignation of an area to attainment. The other proposes approval of a state implementation plan. Both proposed January 3rd, 2025.
Great example this is of how regulations, constantly evolve based on new data and analysis. The EPA initially planned to declare the Kentucky portion of the Louisville area, Kentucky, Indiana, in compliance with ozone standards, but now they're proposing to deny that request. Seems they uncovered new information suggesting the air quality there isn't quite where it needs to be.
It must be frustrating for local communities, businesses, when regulations change course like that. On the other hand, it's, reassuring that the EPA is prioritizing public health based on the latest scientific evidence.
Absolutely. Clean air is essential. These proposed rules, they highlight those ongoing efforts to monitor and to improve air quality across the country. Meanwhile, Cleveland, they're moving forward, approving a plan to address ozone levels there. It's a reminder, air quality issues, they're often regional. They require these tailored solutions.
Speaking of adjustments, the Federal Election Commission has finalized a rule adjusting civil monetary penalties for inflation. This was finalized on January 3rd, 2025.
Think of it as a routine tune-up. For those campaign finance laws, the fines for violations, they're adjusted periodically to keep up with inflation. Make sure the penalties are still, a deterrent regardless of economic fluctuations.
It's like adjusting a recipe for a different altitude, making sure it still works the same way.
Exactly. It's all about maintaining consistency and fairness in how the law's applied. Even seemingly minor adjustments can really have a big impact in the long run.
Let's take to the skies now. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and the Department of Transportation, they've issued two final rules. The first one updates the regulations for Basic Med.
For those who don't know, Basic Med allows pilots to fly certain aircraft without a full medical certificate, as long as they meet, specific requirements. This update, finalized on January 3rd, aims to clarify and refine the program.
Sounds like they're trying to strike that balance between safety and accessibility.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They want to make sure pilots are healthy enough to fly, while also reducing unnecessary barriers for those who meet the criteria.
The second rule from the FAA and DOT is a correction to a previous rule about powered lift aircraft. Those are pretty fascinating aircraft that combine aspects of airplanes and helicopters. This correction, it was finalized on January 3rd, 2025, and it addresses some errors in the original rule.
It's a good reminder that even in this really complex world of, aviation regulations, mistakes happen. The key is to identify and fix them quickly to keep the integrity of the system.
Let's shift gears to international trade. The International Trade Commission finalized a rule, amending their rules of practice and procedure for various trade investigations. This rule was finalized January 3rd, 2025.
They're basically doing some housekeeping, clarifying procedures for handling those trade disputes, making, technical corrections, all about making sure things are fair and transparent in international trade.
Sounds like they're fine-tuning the gears of global commerce.
Exactly. These updates might seem, minor, but they can really have a big impact on how trade disputes are resolved, how businesses navigate those complexities of international markets.
Now let's talk about safety. Safety on the road. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, along with the Department of Transportation, issued two final rules. Both were finalized on January 3rd, 2025. The first one, it updates specifications for a crash test dummy, specifically the hybrid 3rd/5th percentile female test dummy.
You might think crash test dummies are just, lifeless mannequins, but they play a huge role in vehicle safety. This update ensures the female dummy reflects, accurately, the proportions and biomechanics of a smaller female body. That leads to better data and safer car designs.
Amazing how these seemingly small changes can have such a ripple effect. Makes you realize how much thought goes into even the most mundane regulations.
It's all connected, Julian. These updates, they might seem technical, but they're about ultimately protecting people, making our world safer.
The second rule from NHTSA and DOT requires seatbelt reminder systems for rear seats.
Simple change, but it could save lives, We've had seatbelt reminders for drivers and front seat passengers forever, but this extends that safety measure to everyone in the vehicle.
You'd think everyone buckles up already, but I guess those reminders do make a difference.
You'd be surprised. Studies show those reminders really do increase usage rates, especially in the back seat where people tend to, be a little more lax.
Our next stop is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, with a direct final rule and a proposed rule. Both deal with revisions to the approval of spent fuel storage casks. Both finalized, January 3rd, 2025.
The safe storage of spent nuclear fuel, it's paramount. And these rules focus on ensuring the integrity of the casks used for that purpose. The direct final rule implements those changes. The proposed rule allows for public comment, gives, stakeholders a chance to weigh in.
So it's like a two-pronged approach, taking action but also keeping the door open for feedback.
Exactly. It strikes that balance between efficiency and transparency. Really crucial when you're dealing with something as sensitive as, nuclear waste disposal.
And lastly, we have the Veterans Affairs Department, or VA, with a proposed rule to exempt certain well-being services from co-payment requirements, proposed on January 3rd, 2025.
This is a great step towards, I think, supporting the holistic well-being of veterans. By removing, that financial barrier of co-payments for these services, they're making it easier for veterans to access the care they need, whether it's mental health support, stress reduction techniques, other services that promote overall well-being.
It's a recognition that health isn't just about physical well-being. It's about, the whole person.
Exactly. And for veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country, access to those services is essential. Heartwarming to see the VA taking a proactive approach to supporting their, overall health and happiness.
Wow. That was a whirlwind tour of new regulations. I'm already feeling more informed. And to our listeners, we encourage you to visit www.topiclake.com to stay up to date. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.